Okay, so here's question 12 of the test 3 review. So first we're going to see if it's normal or not. And so our guidelines are, these two are the only correct guidelines right here. It either, our n has to be less than or equal to 0.05 of our population size. And so we have 400 adults as our sample size, and we can just assume that that is less than that much of our population size because there are a lot of adults in the world, basically. And so that one we can just assume is good. And then for this part, we got to do this equation. And so we'll start out with our n, which is 400 right there, and times that by our proportion, 0.23. We always put a percentage into a decimal, and then times that by 1 minus 0.23. And that is definitely greater than 10, and so it is normal. And so remember, for our mean, it's just our proportion right there. And then this one we're going to use our equation from our formula sheet. Let me see if I can show you guys that. Chapter 8 right there. Let me see if I can zoom in so you guys can see better. This equation right there. So I would definitely recommend you guys having that pulled up while you're working on this because you want it to be as much like the test as possible. Oops. Okay, so then we're going to do that equation. So that was our P times 1 minus our proportion. Oops. And then we're going to divide that by our n, which is 400 in this case right there. And then we're going to have the square root of that. Okay. And so now we're going to use our calculators in StatCrunch. We said that it was normal up here, so that means that we can use our normal calculator. We plug in our mean and standard deviation that we already inputted. And then it gives us a percentage right there, and since we're using a proportion as our mean, we also have to use a proportion for our x. And we're looking for more than, so we gotta do x is greater than 0.25. And I also like to look at the red with the sign to make sure that it is greater than, it's on the higher side. So we can type in that probability. And then to interpret that, we just times that right there. It's out of 100, so we just times what we got out of 100. And you can't have half a person, so you just round to the nearest. And then we're going to do the same thing for here, but we're going to select our between. And it's 0.20 and 0.25. And then we do the same thing with our calculator there. Type in this answer and times it by 100. Now this one is the one that's a little bit different because it gives us a number and not a proportion or a percentage. And so what we're going to have to do to plug this one into our calculator is we're going to have to do 80 we're going to have to make it a proportion, which we make it a fraction. And so we're going to do, first we're going to select back to our standard, and we're going to keep these guys the same. And then, whoops, we do 80 out of our n, and that's the proportion we're going to plug into here. And then we're looking at that much or fewer. And so that means that we're going to have to flip our sign around, and our red is on the fewer side, so that's good sign. And then in order for it to be unusual, it's less than 5%, and so that's when you move the decimal over 2 places. So this is 7.6% basically, and so it's greater than. So it's not unusual because it is greater than 5%, and we're going to plug in what we got right there and round it up. Oh, whoops. It's not unusual, sorry guys. Right there. I said it right, I just didn't type in it right. Okay, and so there you go with that one.